Greetings, my name is Siobhan Hancock with the New Mexico Department of Health Obesity, Nutrition, and Physical Activity Program. Healthy indigenous cooking is part of a statewide effort to reduce obesity, diabetes, and other chronic diseases in Indian country using traditional Native American recipes. New Mexico is home to 23 distinct tribes, pueblos, and nations, each with its own culturally different foodway. This webinar series focuses on healthy meal preparation of Southwest Native American recipes using indigenous ingredients available in New Mexico. You may substitute some items with local produce or spices from your area. The recipe and other cooking sessions are available online. See the resource slide at the end of this presentation for more information. Healthy Indigenous Cooking is sponsored by New Mexico Department of Health. This program is partly funded by Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program for Education, SNAP-Ed, and the CDC. Let me introduce you to our chefs. Lois Ellen Frank, PhD, is the chef-owner of Red Mesa Cuisine, a Santa Fe, New Mexico-based catering company that specializes in indigenous Native American cuisine and cultural education with a modern twist. Lois cooks alongside Native American chef Walter Whitewater, who works with Chef Frank in Santa Fe, New Mexico. He was one of the first Native American chefs to cook at the James Beard House in New York City. For more information about our chefs, please watch the Session 1 video or go to their website at redmesacuisine.com. Session 5, Homemade Chicken Stock and Traditional Chicken Noodle Soup. Let's get started with Chef Lois Ellen Frank and Chef Walter Whitewater.
Glad you're joining us today. We're going to make homemade chicken stock. This recipe can be used with any bones. Today we're going to be using chicken, but you could think about making vegetable stock. You can make mushroom stock. You can make seafood or fish stock. You can make beef stock. So bone broths are very healthy, and that's because the ingredients from the nutrients from the bone goes into this particular broth. And we're going to start today. I'm going to show you the first step, which would be how to roast the chicken. So many of you are probably getting whole chickens. And what we're going to do is, if you're getting a whole chicken, you're just going to cut that in half. This is about a 5-pound chicken. And we're going to put it in our roasting pan with the skin side down, because we want that skin, that fat, to start to cook. And then whenever you get a whole chicken, certainly when we do, you have all the other parts, including the gizzards and the heart, the neck, all of that can be used and will add flavor to this particular dish. So we've got our chicken, and we're going to add some vegetables. We're going to add some slivered onion, and that's also going to add flavor to our dish. And I'm going to also put in some carrots into this pan. So we've roughly cut carrots, and that's going to go around this. And I'm going to season, this is called seasoning, salt and pepper. And what you want to do is, if you have a larger salt and pepper container in your kitchen, you want to separate out only what you're going to be using on the chicken. And that's because I have gloves on, but I've touched my chicken, and we want to make sure that that salt now has been touched, that we don't use it for anything else but the chicken that we're cooking. So that's fairly important, because we don't want to have any cross-contamination in our kitchens, okay? So keep that in mind. So I can only use this for my chicken. Same thing with the black pepper. So we're going to add a little black pepper. And then I'm going to add some celery. This is all going to add nutrients and flavor to the pan that we're cooking the chicken in. And then I like fresh herbs, but maybe some of you can't get fresh herbs, so you can absolutely use dried if you can't, or you can buy some and then hang it to dry or put it on a sheet tray and dry those herbs so you have your own. What Chef Walter and I like to do is in our cupboard, we like to keep rosemary. For instance, this was fresh rosemary. We've put it in a jar and dried it. And then the same thing with our thyme. And we just label it. So we buy it fresh, dry it, crumble it, put it in a jar, and then we can use it, and we have zero waste. We're getting maximum investment. Fresh herbs tend to be sometimes expensive, but then you can dry them and use that for the remainder of your dish. So I'm going to use fresh for today, and the smell of the fresh herbs is really, really nice. So fresh is preferred, and then dry your own, but if you can't, you can absolutely order dried. What I usually try and do with the dried is I use a little bit more because it's not as pungent. So you're going to take your fresh herbs. I'm going to take some scissors and just cut so that we want about a tablespoon. That goes over. Again, herbs add nutrients. They are medicine, and we want that flavor into the chicken before we make the stock. Same thing with the thyme. Let's go ahead and just cut that fresh herb, and that now is ready to go in the oven. So we're going to put this in the oven, and we're going to roast the chicken. And as in true cooking class fashion, I have a chicken here that's been roasting. You can see that it's still skin side down. So this is going to get turned over. You can see that beautiful and lots of that stuff sticking to the bottom. That's all going to give us flavor. And then I'm going to add even more flavor. I'm going to add the juice of fresh orange and lemon and a little bit of honey. And I'm just going to mix that in a bowl here. And let's use my favorite technique of a towel, right? Remember, we've done this in other classes. Put a towel down, put your bowl on that towel, and then you can do this by yourself so that that bowl won't move. Let's get a little of that honey in here. And then what we're going to do is just mix that. And then when I turn my chicken over, I'm just going to put a little of that citrus on the meat. And then this is going to go back in the oven just to let a little flavor come on this. And then we're going to get ready to pick the chicken. So again, remember fresh herbs if possible. My salt and pepper I can only use for my chicken because that had the raw chicken on there. And I'm going to take the chicken that's going to be done in the oven, and I'm going to show you just how to pick the chicken. What you want to keep in mind is what we want for the stock is the bones. But that meat is good, and we're going to use that in our chicken soup, the traditional chicken soup. But if you're roasting several chickens and you're going to the trouble of doing this, remember you can also make another meal out of that roasted chicken. For instance, we could do taco night. We could do chicken tacos and serve that with homemade corn tortillas, which you've already made, maybe a little salsa. We could do a green chili sauce, a red chili sauce. So lots of ways to maximize the food that you're cooking. So here's our chicken, and once it has cooled down, what I want to do is then I want to pick the meat off the chicken. Again, keep in mind, this meat can be used, we could do enchiladas would be a great meal. So I'm taking the good meat off and putting that in one bowl, and then I'm taking all of the bones and putting that in another bowl. And once that chicken is cooked, it's very easy. I can actually pull it. So again, taking the meat that we can use for another dish off. What many people would want to do is just serve pieces of chicken, but you can't, because if anybody tries to eat this, we would not be able to use the bones, and we really want the bones. So we're just taking that. Look at that beautiful breast meat. I saved the skin. That's going to go in the bone bowl, and then you can shred this chicken, and we could make quite a few recipes, including using some of the chicken for the traditional chicken noodle soup. So I usually like to shred. Here again, that skin has flavor, and we try and use a local company. We have a great poultry farm here in New Mexico, and we use their product. I think the chicken has much better flavor. Look at that beautiful meat. And there again is that breast, taking off, just shredding that meat. And this would be great. Yeah, lots of different dishes, tacos, enchiladas that we can use for this. Okay, so it comes right off the bone very easily. And again, all the bones go in the bone bowl, and all the meat goes in the meat bowl to be used for a variety of dishes. There we go. Here again. And you want to, the reason I like to shred it is because you want to make sure there's no bones in here. And you have to pick it, you have to pick it fairly carefully and focused. Occasionally, bones will get in, and we want to just try and keep those out. Here again, here's our leg bone, taking off that dark meat, putting it in our bowl, and then using the bones in the bone bowl. And I find this really relaxing. And it gets me in touch with, I can smell the delicious flavor. We have those, it's juicy. Look how juicy that meat is. And you will have more with a whole chicken. You will have more than what you need just for the soup, unless you like a lot of meat in. And so that's why I recommend that you make something else with that, including a delicious taco or enchilada or something, another soup that has chicken in it. So you'll maximize. So again, we're just taking that meat off and putting it in our meat bowl, bones. Okay. Again, this is the dark meat, also very moist, has lots of flavor. And picking all the good meat off the chicken, and then putting the remainder of what's left into our bone bowl, okay? Because that is what we're going to be using for stock. So stock always has roasted bones. That's the key. If you wanted to fillet the chicken or take the bones out first, you would still have to roast them. This, I think, Chef Holter and I think this is the easiest way to make the meat, taking that breast off. If you could also roast just chicken breasts. You don't necessarily have to roast the whole chicken. So whatever part you have access to or you can get, that's what you're going to be using for this particular dish. So we have quite a bit of delicious meat. Again, I'm just shredding making sure that no bones are in my meat bowl, and putting all the bones. Still have one more piece here. Okay, it should come right off if it's cooked. You're going to bake your chicken, depending on the size of the chicken. We did a 5-pound chicken. It was about 2 hours at between 350 and 400. Again, your oven, some ovens are calibrated hotter than others, so you want to use your thermometer to test the chicken. Chicken has to be 165 degrees, so we want to make sure for that. Now, on the bottom here, I also have all this delicious stuff. So this is going to go in another bowl, and these vegetables can also be used for the stock. Look at how beautiful that is, all that flavor. So we're just going to remove that, and then I'm going to show you how to, what we would call deglaze. And deglazing is just taking a little bit of water and getting off all the good stuff from the bottom of that pan. So let's get a little bit of warm water. You could also put this pan back on the stove, but we're going to take a spoon and we're going to just scrape, and you can actually see the beautiful color. That's almost stock into itself. If you didn't want to use this for stock, Walter loves to take this and strain it and use it to make gravy. So you could do the chicken pieces with a little gravy, and that would also be delicious, because this has lots and lots of flavor, and that is exactly what we want from that amazing baked chicken. So look at that color. That is all going to have amazing flavor and lots of nutrients. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to make our stock. I'm actually going to take this liquid from this pan and pour it through a strainer into this pot. Okay, and we have we're on our way to a delicious, look at that, scraping all that off. Okay, so we're maximizing the flavor that's from that baked chicken, and that's going to be part of our broth or stock. This stock can be used for a number of different things, and lots of nutrients again. So what you have is that beautiful broth on the bottom. That's not enough for our soup, so we are going to make a little bit more here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to make the homemade stock now, okay? So we're going to come over here and we're going to turn our pan on high. And once the pan is on high, we're going to start to saute our vegetables. Our vegetables that we're going to be using for the stock today is what's left over from the baked chicken. We have some onion, so let's get that ready. And then we're going to use celery. I like to use all the parts of the celery. Don't be afraid of those leaves. So most of the celery will have leaves. All of that can go into this stock. Your carrots you're going to peel, and then you're just going to cut your top and bottom off. Okay. If you have compost or your garden, you're going to put this in your compost, any of those leftover peels. And we're going to take our, okay, this goes in our carrot bowl. Onion, again, we're doing a rough cut. My rule of thumb is if you're using an organic onion, use the skin. That has flavor. If you're not using an organic onion and you're using a commercial oven, just make sure that you remove that outer part of the onion, and then you can cut it in half. And we're just gonna loose cut this, very easy, because we're making stock. Okay, that goes in the onion bowl. And then last but not least, our celery. And all the parts, you're just cutting the end off, can be used here. So leaves, flavor, remember it's all about the flavor. And we're ready to go cook the stock. For the stock, I'm also going to be using thyme. So that's going to come over. We're going to go over to the stove now. Walter's going to follow me over. Step one, let's get the onions cooking. You want your pan to be very, very hot. You're going to hear sizzle. There it goes. And that sizzle means the pan is hot. We want to give that a nice stir. Little bit of oil. I'm using a little bit of sunflower oil. Safflower oil would be really good for this. Then we're just letting those onions cook, letting the onions. So you're going to pour the onions in, and when you pour the onions in, you're going to hear a sizzle. You want that pan really hot, guys. You're going to let those onions, look at that. They're already starting to turn brown. This is all good. So I'm going to stir the onions, and we're going to let them get brown. I think a lot of people get nervous that it's getting brown, it's going to stick. We want brown on the bottom of that pan. We're making stock. So just like in the baked chicken, let it get in, let it start to turn brown. Next thing you want to add are your carrots. And same thing, let it start to cook. Let it start to turn brown. My heat is on high, okay? And we're letting all of those flavors come together in our soup pot, all right? And then we're gonna add our celery, okay? Let those vegetables continue to cook. Oh, yummy. I would almost eat the vegetables. They're so good. So the next thing we're going to do, we want to make sure that we have our bones, and we want to make sure the bones are in small enough pieces so that they can go into the bottom of that pan. So if you haven't, you're going to rip these into smaller pieces. Mine are pretty much in nice small pieces, checking to make sure I don't have any other parts of that delicious meat to go in. So this is just the bones of the roasted chicken and the stock. Okay, so I'm going to give it a nice stir, and then I'm going to add my bones. So all the bones go in the pot, all those big bones. You want to get all that good flavor. And we're just going to let it continue to cook. And saute, getting maximum amount of flavor, maximum amount of color. It's okay if it sticks to the bottom, guys. Perfectly fine to do that. All right. And let's give it a stir. Okay. And I'm just changing my gloves because I touched that chicken, so I don't want the essence of that. But look at that. Oh my God. All right. Still on high. Still continuing to cook. All right. Look at that. Beautiful. Lovely. Gonna make some really good chicken broth. And rather than throwing these away, I'm gonna go ahead and add my vegetables from my baked chicken. That's gonna go in next. Those are already cooked. And then I'm gonna take some water. This is the last thing we're gonna do here. And we wanna take that water and we're gonna add that once this has cooked, again, let's give it a nice stir. And it is sticking to the bottom. It's okay. Okay to let that, all that stick. Let it turn brown. Those onions nice and brown. Okay. Beautiful. Checking the bottom, that's perfectly fine. Letting all of that start to cook. And then the last thing we do is we're going to take our water and we're going to pour the water onto our broth, all the stuff that's cooking. And I just want to show you, look how beautiful. Already, you could almost eat it like this. We're going to let it reduce, but look at the color. Look at that broth. This is delicious broth that can be used in a number of ways. This is a very healthy for our seniors. We're getting all that good flavor in there, lots of nutrients. So what we're going to do is just add enough water to cover your bones, cover your vegetables, and we're going to let that stock reduce. I'm going to take the delicious broth that I had from my chicken. I'm going to add that. Oh, look at that, guys. It's going to be really, really, really nice. And we're just going to bring this to a boil, and then we're going to turn it down and let it simmer. I usually like to cook my stock for at least an hour so that we get all the flavors, and then we're going to strain that, and then we can use that. Now let's think about this broth. So this broth will make delicious soup, but maybe we want to save some of that broth and use it for something else. So one of the things you could do is take an ice cube tray and put the broth, once it's strained, in the ice cube tray, and then freeze it, put it in a bag, and you could use those as bouillon cubes for other dishes. Or you can freeze it once it cools. Remember, we want to use our safety knowledge in the kitchen, let it cool, and then we can freeze it in either half quart or quart containers and freeze it. But what I like to do is, after my chicken stock is done, I put it in the refrigerator. And what I want to show you now is that once you refrigerate it, the fat, okay, because we really just want what's not fat, is going to float to the top. And I can take a spoon and I can remove that fat. And that's why when the stock is cooking, we don't want to stir the stock. See that fat? We want to skim. So if you see fat on top of your stock, you're going to remove that. And then after this is, see how it's jiggling? That's actually a perfect stock. That means that we've made an aspic with the bone broth, and we have made a perfect stock. I can take that fat once it's chilled, and I can scrape that fat off, and I have a perfect stock, lots of nutrients that we're going to use. So all I have to do now is heat this up and add my vegetables for the chicken soup. So everybody can see that. You want to put your stock either in a pan or a container and let it sit, and then after it has cooled completely, scrape that fat off. So what we're going to do now is our stock is going to cook. I have one stock that's done. We're going to get ready, and I'm going to show you how to make the traditional chicken noodle soup, and we're going to get ready, and that'll be the next thing that we do. Okay, so we have done our stock, and what we're going to do now is get our vegetables ready for our soup. A lot of times when you get carrots, they're gigantic and they have the skin on. So we're just going to peel the skin off. You might think, well, why are you peeling the skin off? The skin tends to be bitter, and we want to keep this soup really nice and clean tasting. We made that beautiful chicken broth, which is cooking in the background. So I'm just going to get that skin off. This is what I am going to use for my compost, and then we're going to go ahead. So skin comes off the carrots, and that's just because we want to keep it nice and sweet. And again, let's think we're cooking for our seniors. My carrot's pretty big here, so I think personally that that's too big a piece. So I'm going to cut my carrot here, and then I'm going to cut it again in half, all right? And then fold it over and cut half circles on the bigger pieces of the carrot for my chicken soup. So think bite size, what's on your, what's going to be on your spoon, and cut that. And then this is easy. We're just going to cut circles on the smaller pieces. And that's going to actually be in the soup, right? So that we have something. But if you wanted, I think growing up, my brother loved just the broth with the noodles. So you could also do your chicken soup with just the broth and the noodles. I like a little texture. I like my vegetables. So I'm going to do vegetables. But again, whatever you have access to and what you think your seniors are going to eat and want, but certainly canned chicken noodle soup just has the noodles and the broth. So you could do that, but I love vegetables. So I'm going to do my vegetables, and we're going to put them in a bowl once they're cut, making room. So this is a nice size to me. I like to have the bite size, fits on my spoon. I can have not a big giant piece, but that's just me. All of you have creative freedom, and you can certainly do what you think your seniors will like the best, and make it easy on them, right? We're making a delicious soup, and we want them to eat that. Here we go again, cutting it in half, putting it flat, and then slicing those carrots. Okay. And that's going to go into the soup. So the same, a lot of these techniques that you're learning, you're going to use over and over again. Once you have basic knowledge, you'll be able to get creative and come up with new ideas. You might want to add some corn kernels. That would also be good in this soup. Chef Walter sometimes likes to do chopped onion. So again, what do you like? What do your clients like? What do your seniors like? How do you want to make this soup for them? Okay, so almost done with the carrots. And then let's also think our celery. So celery, very healthy. It does add flavor. Again, I really like to have vegetables in my soup. This is the way I grew up. My grandma did it, so very traditional. And then you're still getting some fiber from those vegetables and additional nutrients. It's all about flavor, and it's all about those nutrients. Okay, so this is going to go in our bowl. Celery, same thing. I just cut the end off, And I don't like giant pieces, so this is where I would cut here. This is my compost. Same thing. If it's big, cut. All right. And then what we're going to do is cut this into smaller pieces. And I don't mind the leaves. Some people like to discard the leaves. So again, whatever works for you. Here are nice small pieces of celery. Look at that. And that's going to be for our soup. Nice little pieces all the way down to the end. Okay. Perfect. And then same thing, if you don't want the skin, just those leaves, take that off, and then cut your celery. So here we have celery and carrots for our soup. So that's ready to go. And we want to think about a couple other things. We're going to be using egg noodles. So what I like to do is I like to cook my noodles in a pasta pot or a pot with a strainer. Otherwise, you're going to have to strain it. As soon as your noodles are done, you're going to take them out, okay? And you're going to let that drain. Now, I don't like to re-cook my noodles. I like to cook the vegetables and then take those noodles and put it into the hot broth so that they don't get overcooked. If you overcook them, they start to fall apart, and I find that that is just not as tasty for the soup. So I always keep the noodles separate, and over time I found that that keeps them from getting overcooked. So we have our celery done. We have our carrots done. We're going to reach back here and get our beautiful stock that's been reducing. Take a look at that. And that stock is now done. All the vegetables are cooked. Beautiful. See the foam on the top? That's the fat. So that's what you could take your spoon, the large spoon, and skim that off. Okay? So we can just skim. That is just fat, and that will be discarded. Okay? So that's a good example of the fat. Now we have our broth. We're going to come over here, and we're going to take our soup pot and strain the broth through the strainer. Oh, look at that. Good, good, good. Oh, yummy. Getting all the broth. You can still see it coming out. Okay. All right. So, we've got our broth strained. That's going to stay in this pot. Now, couple of things. Some of you may want to do this. Some of you may not. Chef Walter loves these vegetables. And if you have the time and if you have the staff, you can actually take those pieces of carrot out, and that could be added to the soup as well. So again, base your timing and the amount of staff, and then that could be chopped. Go ahead and do that. It has flavor. But remember, these are already cooked. So these would be added at the very, very, very last moment. But these are certainly beautiful edible carrots, and those could be used in your soup as well. Okay? So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our soup pot, and we're going to cook our vegetables. So the carrot and the celery will get cooked. Again, I want my pan to get nice and hot so that I can cook my carrots and my celery. I have my chicken. So let's think about how much of that chicken, and you know, some of the pieces might be too big, right, for our seniors. So what we're going to do is you can actually just take that out and slice that into nice small pieces. Walter loves his soup chunky, but again, think what can your seniors eat and how big a piece would you like? He likes his nice and chunky. So I like somewhere in between. That's a nice size for me. And then my pan is on, so I'm going to start cooking my carrots. So again, adding a tiny bit of oil. Let's get those carrots in. And we're going to let those start to cook while I get my chicken meat ready. And I like to use both white and dark meat. So some people just like white, but I like both. I think Walter likes both. I love the dark as well. And making that. So here quality control. I'm taking a little piece of that skin out. I really just want the roasted meat and only the meat for this. Now checking, did you miss any bones or anything that you missed? Okay. And cutting that meat. And actually, I think that's going to be plenty of meat for the soup. So I'm going to have leftover meat, so I'm going to make that into another meal, right? We're going to use that for our tacos or our enchiladas. That looks like the right amount. So I'm going to just change my gloves again. And we're going to come over here and give the carrot a little stir in the pot. And then we're going to add our celery. So using a spoon. Okay. So again, we're letting those start to cook. I'm going to add the celery. And then I am going to add a little bit of salt and pepper, right? And I'm using a different salt and pepper than I did for the, this is my other salt and pepper, not touched by the raw meat or my gloves. A little bit of pepper, okay? And then I am going to add my broth. Wow, this is going to be delicious chicken noodle soup, everybody. The next thing I'm going to add is the chopped chicken. Look at that beautiful soup. And we're going to add our chicken meat. And then you can make a decision, how does that ratio look? Chicken meat, see, that looks good to me. To vegetables. We're going to let this cook for a couple of minutes until our vegetables are soft. And then the last thing that I am going to do is to add those carrots, if I'm going to, those cooked carrots from the stock broth. Make sure you add all your chopped meat that you want to your chicken soup. And then the last thing that we will do is so I'm saving these to the side, putting that in a clean bowl that I can use for the soup, and then I'm going to show you how we would serve this. This would be delicious if you wanted to with a roll. You could also do soup or salad. That's a very wonderful dish. So my noodles are cooked, and I dip them in cold water to stop the cooking. And then what we're going to do is get ready to plate our soup. And I'm going to just change my gloves and get some fresh gloves on here for plating. So you could use any kind of bowl. We can use a wide mouth bowl, whatever you have in your kitchen. So while we're getting ready to go into the plating process, let's just do a quick review to make sure everybody, because we have a lot going on today. It's a lot going on. So step one, bake the chicken. Add vegetables and seasoning to the chicken when it bakes. Right before the chicken's done, that's when I like to put on the citrus and honey. It's going to give a little bit of flavor and some nutrients. Then once the chicken comes out of the oven and it has cooled, we pick the chicken and we put that in a bowl. And we take our bones and we put that in another bowl. Then we're ready to do the stock. The stock has onion, carrot, celery, and a little thyme. We want to cook that onion till it turns nice and brown. Add the carrots, add the celery, add our bones. We're cooking and it's sticking to the bottom. We have to remember that's okay. So then we're letting it reduce. If you see any foam, that's the fat on top. You're not stirring your stock for that hour when you reduce it. You're actually just skimming, okay? Then we strain. Then you have a choice. So you could make this the day before, or you could make a bunch of stock and freeze it, and then you would have an easy meal, okay? So once the stock is refrigerated, you can skim that fat off. That can go in a container and then get frozen, or you can rehydrate that stock, and that can be used for your chicken soup or any other dish that requires a broth. So then that's step one. Step two, make your stock, let your stock strain, use that. You can use the stock right away, but it's a little bit more of a step on the same day if you're planning to do the soup. Walter and I love to make stock and freeze it, and that way you have it already done, much easier for your soup. Then for the soup, we have our broth. We put that in the pan. After we've sauteed our carrot and celery, we add our chicken meat that's cooked, and then we add the delicious broth for the chicken soup. So now we're up to speed. Let's get our chicken soup. So again, my favorite thing to do is just to take that towel. So here, my soup has been cooking, my vegetables. Oh, the smell. This is so amazing, you guys. My noodles are cooked. I have a ladle. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my noodles and put how many noodles I think I want per serving on the bottom of the bowl. Okay. And then I'm going to take my soup here, which has the cooked carrots and the celery and the chicken meat, and I'm going to pour that on top. And I have a delicious, nutritious, I think easy to make. I think all of you absolutely can make this. Remember, we don't want to overcook those vegetables, so we have some texture. Look at that beautiful broth here. You can add as much or as little broth as you want. And we just want to wipe the outside of the plate. We have made homemade chicken noodle soup, traditional style, lots of nutrients and lots of flavor there. If you want, you can add the noodles right to the chicken stock and serve that, making sure that they're hot. We want everything to be nice and hot. and one of my most favorite things in the world. I find it very comforting, homemade chicken noodle soup. So I'm going to turn it back over to Siobhan. We're just thrilled that you chose to join us today and to learn this. We did do a lot. And so if you have any questions, we're available to answer those. The recipes will be posted with a still photo of this on the website. And Walter's favorite thing is he loves to garnish. So he would add a little bit of a garnish. So you could take a sprig of thyme if you wanted, or a piece of parsley, and just make it pretty. Add that little bit of beauty to the plate. You could also just have it a little piece sticking out there if you wanted. So don't be afraid to garnish. We want to make our food not only nutritious and delicious, but beautiful. So we love our food. We take great pride in making our food beautiful. And that actually looks prettier. So let's go ahead and just put the beautiful leaves there. But you could just serve it that way. And so this was a great class. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay tuned for other episodes on healthy Native American nutritious cooking. It's been a pleasure being your chef today, and I'm going to turn it over to Siobhan, and we'll end the class. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Chef Frank and Chef Whitewater. The recipes and more may be found at the links below. We hope you enjoyed today's lesson. Thank you for joining us.